I think when he told me he had bladder cancer, I was probably more freaked out than he was. John's and my relationship is a little unusual in that he lives outside of Washington, D.C., and I live in New York City.
She and I hung out as teenagers growing up on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and we actually reconnected about 2.5 years ago on Facebook.
Even though we live in different cities, I consider us inseparable. Whatever comes our way, we'll get through it because we have one another.
Hey, good morning. How y'all doing?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Well, I found that I was having to go to the bathroom very frequently, and I went to see my doctor, and she found a microtrace of blood in my urine and said that I should see a urologist.
Sometimes I think people tend to, want to escape what's happening to them rather than face it and say, let's find the best resource for this.
The reason we ended up at Hopkins is because it's so highly regarded. It's a teaching hospital. Their resources have enormous depth.
We knew that Johns Hopkins was one of the premier medical institutions in the country, and specifically in urology. They had blue light cystoscopy, which the local urologist did not have, and we learned enough to know that that was something that we wanted to have to utilize.
Dr. Bivalacqua scheduled a cystoscopy and found that there was cancer in the lining of the bladder, which is where the previous doctor had found it. I had a couple of different infusions of BCG treatments in which they infuse your bladder with tuberculosis, and your immune system's supposed to come and fight that and fight the cancer at the same time. Then I came back 3 months later and found that the cancer had recurred. It was in the muscle tissue, which is dangerous because it can metastasize from there, and he told me that I would have surgery to have my bladder removed.
Now serving 31 at window 2.
With this illness, there's a tremendous collaboration that goes on.
We were scheduled to attend an interdisciplinary clinic. I think that's what they called it. It made us feel like we were embraced by a staff all looking out for me and for us.
All right. So, Mr. Squire,
Yes.
I'm going to have you drink your juices that we already talked about.
Only two.
Yep, only two. Okay?
Once
we'll get to go.
we kind of figured out what the path was going to be, both of us felt much more reassured.
Well, obviously I was deeply concerned about the idea of losing my bladder. We had read a lot about this. You can have a neobladder, in which they use part of your intestine to form a bladder. You can have what's known as an Indiana pouch, which is an internal pouch that you catheterize. I elected to have the ileal conduit. I wear a urostomy bag. It was presented as being the simplest, the most reliable. I felt my chances of success were greater by having something less complicated. I really almost didn't think about it. It just seemed to be the most logical choice for me.
It's a very scary undertaking to know that your whole way of life and how your bodily functions are all going to change. As crazy as it seems, John's overcoming bladder cancer and having this journey has brought us much closer. It's made us recognize that we can act as a team to overcome something like this and to move forward and just keep looking towards the future.
I feel healthy, I feel comfortable. I'm very fortunate to live close enough to have access to a place like Hopkins. I think it made a world of difference. The whole thing, it was as easy as it could possibly have been, thanks to the Hopkins staff.